Thank you all so much for being here. Welcome to our session on converting existing products in PolicyCenter to APD. I'm Nicole Gibbard, and today I have with me Sean, Saskia, and Zihan, who will talk to you all about the process that we've developed. Before that, just a couple housekeeping items. We will have questions at the end, and myself and one other person will be coming around with mics, so just make sure your hand is nice and raised, and we will definitely try to get to as many of you as possible. And a couple other things. One is that we would love your feedback, so there will be a QR scan. We would love for you to tell us how valuable and amazing our speakers here are and everything that you got out of the session today. And as a reminder, any future feature and functionality discussions that we have today are covered under our safe harbor. With that, I want to hand it over to our team to talk about APD.
Thank you, Nicole. Hi, everyone. So if you were in the Roadmap to Success session just prior, you already know me, and great to have you here. If you haven't, welcome. We are going to be talking about something really exciting. You probably have seen a glimpse of some of this in a visionary aspect in our keynote on day one. And so the main topic at hand here is looking at conversion of existing non-APD lines of business into APD app. Now, what I do want to highlight is, as we are going to be going through some of the key topics today, we're going to start off with the overall problem statement. What are the challenges that we've heard our customers experiencing? And to that effect, what we've been able to launch as part of early access this over the last few months, going through a product demo so you get to see what a glimpse of the conversion looks like, and also for you to understand what are some of the benefits that you get by managing your line of business in APD. And then finishing off with different pathways that are available to you depending on where you are in your journey and the overall benefits, value, and roadmap for APD. So let's start off with the problem space. A lot of our on-prem customers today, they have already made significant investments with Guidewire. Their existing lines of business established several years, a decade ago, with tools that have predated advanced product designers' existence. And so many of these lines of business, they are live in production with hundreds or thousands of policies against them. And so when we tune into what customers have expressed, either those that are actively transitioning to cloud or those that have already made it to cloud, some of the sentiments that we hear are around feeling left behind or still not being able to adopt capabilities at speed. And even more so, what we hear are on-prem customers that are thinking about cloud transition. They actually want to know how they can use APD before they even start on that journey. So the underlying problem here is that customers are looking to carry their existing investments over to cloud and have a clear line of sight on how they can achieve their business objectives using GWCP. And so to that effect, Guidewire has been putting in a lot of investment on capability adoption. How do we help enable our customers via any mechanisms of automation to really propel that forward and make this transition and adoption of the cloud capabilities more seamless? But why is this important? I think it's important to remember the context that our carriers have. And so in general, today, the complexity of the industry is quite vast. The average insured is up against a whole slew of risks. We see inflation, we see advancing technology, we see natural catastrophes. And to that effect, insurers demand better products and experiences. And so carriers have a pretty high set of expectations to meet. And so when we look at key customer objectives, we hear carriers say, we want to be able to reduce total cost of ownership. We want to be able to personalize existing lines of business. We want to be able to expand to new distribution channels and increase overall operational efficiency. And so when we hear that, then we wonder, okay, well, what's happening within your micro space, within your environment? And I think some of the key challenges there is untangling how to build faster, cheaper, and easier. And then when you look at a macro effect, it's that there are key problems and challenges around how do we really stand out in an environment where there are so many competitors. And so the last, I'd say, last year effectively has been heavily involved in all things adoption. The APD team, alongside with several other teams within Guidewire, we put heads together on how do we enable you with a path that allows you to take your existing investments over to APD app. And so as of Kufri, we've launched an early access program, which is a one-time process that allows your existing line of business, non-APD line of business, to be APD compatible. And in the process, we are also generating cloud APIs so that you are enabled with cloud capabilities such as Utro, integration gateway, submission intake, etc. The underlying principle here is that there's no policy data migration or product profiling required. However, it's key to remember that as of current state, this is not an easy button. Essentially, this is a service offering enhanced by automation. And so some of the key milestones here that you can anticipate is as we go through the early access program, Guidewire Professional Services will be engaged. We will start off by evaluating your line of business, understanding have you started your product model build off of maybe an out-of-the-box template, out of a basic template, or has it primarily been fully like a custom build? These kinds of questions will help us understand what is the overall complexity of the line. From there, we'll be able to give you a sentiment on what the potential cycle time could be like. Then we go into leveraging the automation tooling to kickstart the reverse engineering. And essentially what we're doing is we're taking the PolicyCenter definition and putting it into a format that APD app understands. From there, we go through code-gen and transformation of your PCFs. We will have you go through with us to validate and remediate and go through a testing period. We will execute your existing test suites along with have you add additional test cases so that you can account for product edits via APD app. Finally, after all of that looks good and you're confident in it, we can promote this to production. Now, what happens behind the scenes here? Essentially, this is a true round trip that we're trying to achieve. It's an apples to apples comparison, and to that effect, there isn't much of a big change you will see after you go through conversion. All you will see is things are working as they originally did. And so the first prerequisite here is being on GWCP. The tooling itself is on Kufri version onwards. So you have to be on Guidewire Cloud. From there, step 2 is we go through the reverse engineering process and extract the product configuration in PolicyCenter. And this is the metadata that we then represent in JSON format to be inputted into APD app. Now, upon doing so, what you will see is that we move into the core conversion, completing the round trip, and that's essentially where the magic to preserve your existing product model, data model, and goes-to config happens. And on top of that, we maintain any existing cloud APIs that you have. And so from that point onwards, APD is a part of your design toolkit. So now let's actually see this in action.
Thank you, Zihan. So I'm going to show a pre-recorded demo of converting the homeowner's line of business to APD. So we'll try to make what Zihan just explained on the slides come to life a little bit. So let's assume we have an insurance company called Future State Insurance. They've already migrated to Guidewire Cloud Platform, and you can see there on Kufri release that came out last summer. We can navigate to PolicyCenter from here, and this is PolicyCenter in the cloud. We're logging in as Alice Applegate, our underwriter. And she can open up the account of a policyholder, Ray Newton. And we'll see that Ray has a homeowner's policy in production. Ray has had this policy for a couple of years. It's been renewed a couple of times. And this data is all on Guidewire Cloud Platform. We can look at the policy data and see all the policy details. So for future state, to enhance this line of business and make changes to it, in today's world, the developer would have to go to tooling like Guidewire Studio. And so here you see an example of that. I'm looking at the dwelling entity, and we're looking at the roof type dropdown. So if I wanted to add a new option here to the roof type, I have to come into Studio and add this option here. So here's an example. I'm adding solar shingles as a new roof type that we want to start tracking. Now, future state would like to make changes like this one through the APD app instead, going forward. So we'll convert this line to APD to make that happen. I logged into my local PolicyCenter, and then on the administration screen, I can go to Product Management. We see we do not have APD managed lines here yet. On the next tab, we'll see our existing homeowners line that will convert to APD. Before we start this, we'll go back to Studio and create a technical file. This is a file that's needed to explain to the automated tooling how some of the entities need to be handled. So this will require some developer analysis and the file creation. And once that's done, we can export the product with this new button that's available as of Kufri. And this downloads a zip file that contains the JSON representation of this existing product. So you see here some of the JSON files. And next, we'll jump over to APD in Guidewire Cloud. You see there are no APD products listed here yet, so we will create one. And we'll use the downloaded zip file that was just created earlier to create this product in APD. We have a few more steps to do. So we'll open this up and find what the identifier is for this product. So we can look at the details here. And we see the identifier is HOP homeowners. So I'll jump back to my Studio. And now I can import this product from the cloud with that same identifier. So we're starting to see this product here in the list, but still a couple more steps to do. We go to pre-adoption to do some preliminary work to the changes to the code that are needed. And this was successful. And next we can generate the product code. So when we generate the product code, this makes the majority of the changes that are needed for APD to manage this line of business going forward. So we see some files that will get some changes made to them. And in this case, all we want at this point is the base product generated. Later, we can also generate the system APIs. And after we complete this generation, there are changes made to the code base, and I'll show some examples of that in Studio. So for example, we see that the type lists, the priority values are changed so that they're now sequential numbers, so that in APD, when you add a new option, it knows how to handle that properly. And on entities, you see we are adding a tag automatically. And then the code gen has generated new files, new classes that are needed by APD, but we try to not overwrite custom code that was in place. And then last thing we need to do here is edit the PCF files, or the files that represent the screens. Here we need to now make sure that we reach out to the APD microservice to determine the behavior for those fields. So I replaced that XML with some new code that now calls APD to determine if the fields should be editable, etc. Now, these kinds of changes need to be made to all the fields for this line of business. So this is just an example. Now we can compile this and redeploy it. And back on Guidewire Cloud, we can see the product in APD. So here's the same dwelling that we looked at earlier in Studio. It's got all the attributes, the coverages. And if we jump over to PolicyCenter in the cloud, we can take a look what happened to our policyholder, Ray Newton. So again, we'll log in as Alice Applegate. And search for that same account. And we see that the homeowner's policy is still there, just like it was before. We can open this policy and operate it as usual. For example, we could start a policy change and quote and issue this policy change. So in essence, what we did here is we converted this line of business to APD, but we did not impact the production data. The user experience is still the same. The user can still take the same actions that they did before. And everything still works. So maybe this is a little bit boring, right? We did a bunch of work and we have the same outcome. But boring in this case is what we want, right? And Sean in a minute will explain some of the more exciting part of what you can now do in APD. One more thing I wanted to mention is what I just showed in this 6-minute demo. Right now it takes more like 6 weeks, depending on the complexity of the line. And while we showed you most of the steps, we do ask that you do this only as part of the early access program at this time. We do have a couple more spots open for that. So if you are interested in converting at least one line in the next 4 to 6 months, please reach out to any of us or your Guidewire representative.
All right, thank you, Saskia. So I want to emphasize before I start that what we saw, the process we just saw, is a one-time process, right? That's been done. The product is now converted to Advanced Product Designer, and we can start using it in the new world. So I'm here to show the more exciting part of what you do next. It's basically an Advanced Product Designer demonstration. So let's jump into it. This is managing a line in Advanced Product Designer. So again, I'm in the cloud environment. I am going to jump into Advanced Product Designer here, and we're going to look at our homeowners product. We're going to make a couple changes, right? So we have already gone live with our converted product. It's the exact same as it was before. Very boring. We're going to add a couple things. So what I did just now was from Advanced Product Designer, I extracted the mind map. This gives us that visual tool to jump in and see the product structure. We can view coverages. I'm going to navigate to the homeowner dwelling. And we're going to add a couple things. We're going to add a new coverage. We're going to add a new drop-down item in a type list. So very similar to what we saw Saskia do with the roof type, we're going to add to that field again, this time in the new world, this time in Advanced Product Designer. So I'm starting here by looking at our additional coverages, and we're going to add in a green upgrades coverage. This would cover you if you suffer a loss and you want to perform your upgrades with some environmentally friendly options. And secondly, I'm going to jump into the roof type and add in a new roof type. Something that APD gives you that the old way didn't is you can now manage your risk model inside of Advanced Product Designer. Previously, that was in Studio. You had to go to the Studio editor, you had to modify the XML files. Now you can control that within Advanced Product Designer. You can add availability rules. You can add conditions right inside of the new user interface. So here we're adding a living roof option into our mind map. And then we can jump back into Advanced Product Designer, and then I can update the product directly from that mind map. For those of you not familiar with Advanced Product Designer, we kind of go through a 3-step process of conceptualizing products, visualizing them in the system, and then finalizing them or generating the code. So we're able to quickly go from that conceptualized product in the mind map directly into the system. It's going to pull in the changes that we just added, that coverage and that drop-down option. Next thing we want to do is we have those new options. Again, this is your production business. We're planning for a new release. Previously, that would have been done in Studio, through Product Designer, various mechanisms. We're going to use additions inside of Advanced Product Designer. We want to create a new edition of our product. We're going to call it our Release 2. And we're going to give it an effective date of December 1st. So again, we're going to make changes to this product, and we want them to be effective December 1st in production. So really easy to choose those options. You can even choose jurisdictions, other segments as needed. You can think of additions as wrappers of product rules. So I'm jumping into addition 2, and we're going to search for that roof type drop-down that we added a value to. And again, what you couldn't do before was modify availability rules of risk attributes. And we're doing that here. We see our new green roof option. And I want to add an availability rule to it directly in Advanced Product Designer. This is going to impact when it shows up in your production environment. I'm able to use our rule builder here. So I just typed in year, and it pre-filled the product model and gave me year built. And I want to say if the year built of our dwelling is greater than 2020, we want this field to be available in our UI. So again, a new feature of it, a new capability when you move to Advanced Product Designer. You can add those rules to all data elements across the whole product. We're going to make that same exact change to our green upgrades coverage. So I'm just using the rule builder the exact same way I just did, adding in that same rule, and making that coverage optional inside of Advanced Product Designer. I'm going to save the value, save the model here. We're going to unlock it so that I can go into the next phase of the process, which is generating the assets needed from this change so we can deploy it to production. All right, so I'm just unlocking it here. I think I go back to the APD screen. We can see our homeowners product again. We're going to jump into PolicyCenter. This is my local environment. So as a developer, you can come in, you can synchronize now, as we saw, once we've converted the product, it's connected to Advanced Product Designer. We're synchronizing it, pulling in those latest changes, and we're generating the product code. So this is going to automatically build out that new type list value. It's automatically going to build out that new green upgrades coverage for us to use in production. I'm skipping a step here where we actually deploy it, but that's just a build and deploy process that if any of you developers in here are familiar with. And we're now back onto our cloud release, and let's test our changes. So we have that product now deployed in production. Probably a test environment first. So that would be this test environment in the cloud. We're going to jump into Ray Newton's account. Again, historical policy. He's been, this has been in production for a number of years. I want to point out the effective date. This is November 5th. You remember our change is effective December 1st forward. So I want to highlight our year built as 2021, but why don't we see the new option in the dropdown? Because this edition starts on December 1st, right? So we can see those rules being applied to the product in real time. I'm going to jump to the policy info screen and update that effective date This is pulling in the new edition rules of the product that we just added. We're going to jump back to dwelling construction. You're going to see now in the drop-down option, we have the new green roof option. Similarly, if I change the year built to before 2020, that would execute and you wouldn't have this option in the UI. And that last change we made was just jumping over to the coverages tab. We can look at the additional coverages. And we can scroll down to the bottom. We're going to see that green upgrades coverage that's optional for the user to select. As before, this is the same product that was in production. I can quote it. We're going to get the same premium. We haven't built the rating yet, but your rating developers can now add in rating for green upgrades as they would before. And that's it. That's APD. So of course, you'd probably have a lot more changes in your release than one field, right? But that's the process you'd go through now to manage your line in Advanced Product Designer.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah.
All right. So you've got to see a preview into how a line of business is converted and a practical example of how you can leverage APD to manage your converted line of business. So going back to the question of why is this important? When our customers make it to cloud, it may feel like you're at the edge of a chasm. So customers see the benefit, but the path to getting there is not always as clear. And so now, this bridge is effectively in place for you to cross the chasm and start unlocking the value based on your target business objectives. Now, there are different paths available on this bridge that you can avail of based on your business needs. I do want to highlight that once we've kickstarted, as soon as we've kickstarted the early access program, we've seen a slew of customers raising hands that they want to participate, they want to try this process out. One of our key trailblazers has been CNA. And the CNA team has been working so tightly with product and engineering and early access in providing us really critical feedback that we're directly taking into the process and the tooling as of right now. And so I do want to highlight that we do have a key member of the CNA team here with us, Shrikant. And as we open it up to Q&A at the end of the session, I would love for you to have an opportunity to ask questions if you're interested. So going back to the topic of the different pathways, we've gone through a very detailed overview of conversion of non-APD line of business to APD app. Now, you may be in a scenario where you have lines of business that were developed in PolicyCenter APD, so PC version 10. We already have an existing pathway for APD and PC lines of business to move to APD app on cloud. And this is actually a separate process that's unique from conversion and takes a fraction of the time to complete. And so if you do fall within this category, I would highly recommend that you take this path forward so that you can consolidate your lines of business on APD app in cloud. Now, if you have SPT lines, you may be wondering, when can I avail of the conversion path? As of right now, we still recommend our SPT customers to use retrofit. And retrofit at its core is intended to generate the cloud API endpoints upon your existing line of business so that you can avail of Utro, IG, etc. The main difference here is that you would not be able to manage that line of business in APD app. We've seen a lot of our existing SPT customers go through cloud retrofit, and they've been able to unlock their key business objectives with digital experiences, for example. Now, you may also be in a situation where you don't have a business need to use APD right now, or you maybe are not making any product model changes, or maybe you don't seek a different approach in how you empower business users and IT to work together in the product model build. And that's okay. You don't have to do anything. However, if you do choose to do retrofit, you can do conversion later. So that's really key to remember here. These two paths are not mutually exclusive. Now, you've seen where we are today. would love to give you a preview into where we're going. So as of Lostliness, which is going to be available December 6th, we will be opening up registration for the next wave of early access for conversion of existing lines. We are targeting another 2 to 4 customers. And so if you are interested, whether you have any line that's based off of out-of-the-box template or even a custom line, we would welcome your participation. And the main target here is to go generally available by August 2025, which is the end release. Now, as I mentioned earlier, SPTs are not in scope for general availability. Our recommendation is for SPT customers to use Cloud Retrofit. The next evolution of the conversion topic will focus on SPTs. SPTs are a really complex area that sit upon very in-depth SPT frameworks. And so we want to make sure that before we open up the doors for SPTs to be supported, we do our due diligence, making sure that the path is compatible for it. So finally, closing off on general benefits. As you've seen Sean highlight, some of the key value props for APD is that it accelerates your product development. It reduces the amount of time that it would take to launch and iterate your products. It allows you to personalize your insurance products through editions. You can segment your products by channel, jurisdiction, brand, etc. And it enhances the overall DevX. With the API endpoints, it makes it much more easier for engineering teams to be able to leverage the other cloud capabilities and really quickly build up innovative extensions to your business. So you start off with a line of business and you say, hey, I want to spin up my new digital era. It's much more easier to do that now, much more quicker to do that now. And I want to end off with some of the key themes to think about looking at APD in fiscal 25 and beyond. We've talked in great length about the adoption theme here. And it will end as we go generally available in fiscal 25. The next 2 themes are around really expanding the insurance modeling capabilities in APD with a greater focus on commercial lines. And under the agility theme, we're really looking at how do we help customers that have multiple teams working on products at the same time, multiple releases being worked on at the same time. How do they streamline that DevX and move forward such that within a single sprint cycle, you can get through a lot more changes in one go? And so hopefully this has given you a preview into some of the key benefits and value of APD and your roadmap to getting there. Thank you again for your time, and I would love to welcome Shrikant on stage as we go into Q&A, and then we can go from there. Please join us, Shrikant. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, yeah. We need to.
Awesome. I would like to request a mic if that's possible.
Hello. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, so Shrikant, maybe we'll start off with a question for you as, oh, sorry, yeah? Oh, that's okay.
Check. There we go.
Sure.
It's Troy. Hey,
Hey.
Troy.
Hey. So I have 2 quick questions. One, when you did the hookup for the editability and visibility, you did it through XML. Will that also be available on the property side? So if you went to just the PCF version?
Yes.
Okay.
I just said that was easier for the demo, but absolutely.
Yeah.
You can do it in the UI and just add that in the attribute.
Perfect. Oh, do you? So you showed making product changes, one through the mind map and one without the mind map. Do you have to use one over the other, or are they both interchangeable?
Interchangeable. So whatever's easiest for you and your team in the moment. Yep.
Awesome. I will ask a question to Shrikant since you're here with us. And so just for the audience members to hear, maybe you can tell us a little bit more on why conversion has been important to CNA.
Thank you for the opportunity, Jian. So team, I remember our first meeting with this group, and I was questioning myself, okay, is it really possible? Okay, so just to give a history, so CNA went live 6 months before on cloud, and we are still managing all products on our traditional product designer way. We know the complexity, how we have the complex code, complex coverages, rules, etc. Is it easy to import into EPD? That's the question that I have, and now I am with this team talking here in connections that we have done it for workers' comp. Okay, so to explain about our business, like our workers' comp business is segmented into small, middle, large casualty into 3 different things. We have different product rules by business area. So our goal is to move the product quickly to the small business and the middle market, all that areas, and go to the, instead of we making the change in the policy admin system and the client systems and like for example agent portal, all those things, we want to make it in a centric place and do it quickly. That's one of our objective. Okay, and our vision is not just to stop at APD. We also want to make APD rules so that we can enhance the new rule capabilities on the cloud. And also, we are trying to adapt to Jutro, where we can get all digital SDKs, where we can have a rule built up in APD that can be integrated with both PolicyCenter as well as digital, and for the fact like any schema validation that can be done through one centric place. So whatever we have shown here, okay, we did help from Guidewire. We understood our data model. We kind of went through analysis, what should go into APD, what should not go into APD, and then we configured few params and did a pre-adoption. And then here is the funny part. The PCF adoption probably took more time than anything. So the PCF adoption, and then finally we are now on, so we imported our product into APD, and now kind of we tested a couple of things where can I tweak the coverage availability or the UI availability based on my business unit and etc. Any other rule. And also we generated plenty of cloud APIs where we are making system compatible for the Jutro platform. So that's the story in short. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shrikant. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a preview on a real-life example of how conversion has been valuable. But opening it up to any other questions?
We have a question here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question here.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So question is, once the customer converts the product model into APD, should the customer expect any changes on the feed that is going to the data layer, either on the configuration data or in the transactional data? Because I saw that the testing have to be done on the policies. I get that on the PolicyCenter, billing center, claim center area, but if there are changes that goes in the feed layer, right, the data feed,
Yeah.
are we expecting any changes in that layer or not?
No changes there. So that's one of the benefits, right? Your data model will not change, so downstream is not impacted.
Perfect.
We will add some fields to some of the entities just so that they can be managed by APD, but those fields are only needed for APD, so they don't impact your downstream systems.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great demo, thank you. I think one of my question is already answered by Shrikant, but is it APD converting all entities, like including coverable coverages and even the policy level also, everything? Do we have choice not to get something?
Can I take?
please.
We do have actually. We can scan through the policy graph and we can choose what entities that we do not, even though that is in the policy line graph, I do not want certain attributes because truly they are not APD native things, right? For example, an array or an exposure array or an exposure foreign key, that's something that I write it as my policy being processed, but it doesn't have to be maintained in APD. So There is a configuration file where we can choose not to generate APD entities for those things. Yes, we have flexibility.
Okay. And one more quick question. So authority, like, does it carry authorities also? Like, if suppose I have field level authority, like certain field only underwriter can see versus other. Does it carry those rules also together, or?
So the permissions on your fields will remain in place.
Okay.
And I'll just mention the entities that you can expect to convert to APD are all the line level entities. So anything of your policy line and down. And then like Shrikant mentioned, there may be some entities where maybe you store the results from an integration, right? That are really technical database tables that do not need to be managed in APD. And those you could mark as ignored so that they don't need to come over.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, great presentation. Thank you all. Maybe it's a question for Sean and Shrikant too, right? So one of the things we are seeing even for native APD is the PCF that comes out of APD, right? So in this way, all the customers would have done extensive customization on PCF. If you add a new field, APD generates in its own PCF. How do you port it back? I mean, do you guys see any issues, or what's the plan for PCF adoption? I know he spoke about it, I know.
So I can speak to this. So you might have, it was in the demo, but very quick. I think it's as of Kufri. We have an extensive list of options for what you want to generate from APD. One of those is the PCF files. Not only can you not generate automatically, but you can generate to an external directory. So if you add a new field, you can generate the APD collateral and choose to have the PCF files saved to an external directory, which will have all the controls you need. Then you can just copy paste what you want into your production PCF, if that makes sense. Yeah. So it's pretty flexible.
Yeah, not specific to conversion, but we saw the rules builder for availability in the demo. Do we still have the option to execute GOSU for more complex conditions?
Yeah, absolutely. So nothing goes away from this process. We've added the ability to now use APD with the products. You can still do configuration inside of Product Designer. You can still use availability scripts. You can still go into Studio and make changes there, add code as you would before. Yep.
Great demo, thanks. Appreciate it. Quick question. We saw the timeline of conversion where it said you have to migrate to the cloud first, right? So I'm just thinking, is that, can I do the conversion as part of my cloud update, or do I have to really be live in the cloud before I can start this conversion process?
So in general, we recommend that you've stabilized your cloud transition first. Right now, the reason why we recommend that is if there was an issue that you encounter, we want to be able to delineate, is it because of the cloud transition or is it because of conversion, right? And so once you reach the stabilization phase, then we can do a fast follow on spinning up another dev branch with at least a minimum of Kufri on that branch, and then kickstarting the conversion process there. But yeah, we can definitely do it as a fast follow after the stabilization of a cloud transition.
Two-part question. So on the GOSU rules, right now in Product Designer, whatever you have like availability or existence rules, did you mention that those do get carried forwarded if you are doing a conversion?
So we don't generally do that work as part of the conversion. So we recommend, and like CNA is doing, and right, they did the conversion, completed that, and now they're taking the additional step to take the availability rules and making those APD rules.
Okay, so it's like you will have to rewrite all those in APD.
It should be a two-step process. The first step of the PCF adoption to make the PCF talk to APD microservice. The second step is to understand that availability that is within the line graph. If those attributes are exposed through APD, then take a step two to convert those existing rule into APD native rule.
Okay.
That's again, it won't be like it's again, developer has to do it.
Okay, one reason I was asking was if we are using the digital SDK generators and trying to make use of the schema, then there's not going to be any GoSo concept there, right? Everything will be like APD driven.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, so there may be the right time for you to invest in that, right? When you're trying to use other tools like that can take advantage of that.
Okay, thank you. Quick question. We are in self-management. There is any prerequisite on the release number? We are in 10.1.2, something like that.
So if you are on self-managed, then I would highly recommend upgrading to the latest PolicyCenter version.
Okay,
And
point 3.
And then use APD in PolicyCenter on self-managed.
Excellent.
And then if and when you do migrate to Guidewire Cloud, it will be an easy path.
Exactly, So we will have a mix then.
Yeah.
Some that are, we didn't convert.
Right.
And some that are new, the new products, we can build directly in APD.
Correct, yeah. So if you have lines of business in APD and PC, right, there's a much easier path to get those to APD app on cloud. So you don't need to go through like 6 to 8 weeks of conversion. Within a few days, you can get those lines, your APD and PC lines to APD app.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'll just highlight there's one more booth session in the general floor that I'll be at the policy booth. So if you have more questions, you can come up to me there. And I think a couple of us are still available now if you want to come up and ask. But I think we're wrapping up here.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you all.